Hello. I'm here to state unequivocally our society is under a regime of female supremacy. A regime which has worked its magic like a computer virus and infected us all. We are, right now, under the pink painted thumbnail of a woman's domination. Whatever happened to the idea of mutual respect and an honest living? Whatever happened to the idea of sacrificing it all for the sweet taste of victory? The idea of a free man living free to do as they wish? The idea of a man's castle? What happened to self-determination? Those ideas are gone. What replaced them is the ideal of the helping industry, virtue signaling, and self-sacrifice. The idea of braving a vast wilderness of the unknown for rewards that may or may not be there was drowned out by demands to have a family, settle down, and colloquialisms such as a happy wife equals a happy life are accepted as gospel. Now, at all levels of society, hard physical work is despised, and celebrity, frailty, and helplessness are collectively the ultimate meal ticket. What does society see when a strong man, independent, thoughtful, perhaps inconsiderate, but always bluntly honest? What does society see in that man? They see a threat to their false sense of security. What once represented, earned respect, has become an object of mockery. Strong words spoken at the appropriate time to lead weaklings out of their wretched weakened state into a battle cry of strength. Those words now have become an excuse for those weaklings to cower in a safe space of flowers and pink painted walls. Our own modern society, which boasts a wealth of comfort, knowledge, and power, which our ancestors would have only accepted as God's magic hands at work. Our society, which our forefathers couldn't have even imagined, is now manipulated and controlled by the weakest among us, completely free from any kind of consequence for their sick, sad, misguided words and actions. What great force puts the strong among us in a cage? What is it that vaults these diseased minds to the top of the power structure that the most powerful of our elected leaders bends over backwards to appease their every whim? Well, they say the man is the head, but the woman is the neck. If the woman is the neck, her muscles to move the head are contracted by the substance we call emotional appeal. The weakest among us have but to cry, "You're hurting me," and the women burst into action. The feminine-minded follow their lead, and the easily controlled enforcers stand guard while these hollow voices of fake disenfranchisement are joined by an army of crying, shrieking, wailing female voices. As they say, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. At one time, that was to suggest the removal of the weak links, or the strengthening of those links, that the strength of the chain may increase as a whole. What we have now is a chain that removes all the strong links in order that the weak links might feel better in their weakness. Indeed, we have become a paper tiger. The eagle's wings are broken, and it will never fly again. Who can we blame for our collective weakness? It is not the individual. It is the collective efforts of male appeasement and female demands for dominance. Have you not heard their cries for dominion over the ever-oppressive male? You've no doubt heard women demand equality, and we all are aware that women have achieved equality, and even more than equality over men. It is not equality women demand. In fact, they have never wanted actual equality, for they know full well that men have no easy path to tread in this world. They demand fortification of their already entrenched dominance over men. They demand an expansion of their total control of society, and men are powerless to resist. Why? As we have grown accustomed to meeting the never-ending demands of the weakest links, an equally powerful punishment for those who resist the fake calls for help has established itself. We are told, "How could you ever be against this or that? Take pity on these poor, powerless people." If we should tell them to take those poorly constructed arguments and promptly insert them where human waste ought to reside. Or for those of you who lack comprehension, I mean, to take those arguments and shove them up their ass. Should we suggest this, we become an enemy of the state. You may have noticed that we are essentially being required by social law to give to all who demand, and should we resist, punishment will inevitably ensue. However, understanding that this kind of power, the power to punish people simply for holding an opinion which the broader society has deemed unacceptable, is a power all kings could have only dreamt of. A population that polices itself. A population which needs no law enforcement to establish thought crime legislation. A population which does the work of the executioner without a trial, much less any fair and due process. This is exactly the kind of justice which was carried out by lynch mobs and witch hunters throughout history. A population of people is stirred up to a frenzy, and people lost their lives, whether justly or unjustly. Who can know if they were guilty of the crimes alleged? The crime we commit today is called hate crime, and deserves exile, death, or dismemberment in the minds of the accusers. The difference between the lynch mobs and our current gynocentric legal system is the sheer scope of it. Mobs were once universally considered undesirable. Now, legitimately elected lawmakers hail the new wave of social justice hate mobs. Hate crimes are defined by one's intentions and is determined by popular agreement in the public square to be worthy of punishment. To be accused of this sort of thing, one must simply disagree with the prevailing narrative established by the weakest among us, and by sheer will and numbers they easily overpower the individual. And we thought communism was a threat to personal liberty? Feminism, social justice, and the collective demands of minority populations have done what despots have tried to do for millennia. Get the people to willingly disregard personal freedom in exchange for nothing but a congratulations from the PA system. It is entirely within reason to assume that, should this movement away from the courts to the lynching tree be legitimized, one might imagine a future where one's family member is here today and then tomorrow dismembered for a hateful word spoken at the wrong time, all while the public hardly bats an eye as the streets are washed clean of a fellow citizen's blood. The secret police will have become our neighbors. Who are the revolutionaries to turn the tide of self-immolation? Who are the patriots to make lofty speeches in the pub to take down the despots, turning us into sheep for our labor, skins, and pounds of flesh? Who will rally the people to turn against our bloodthirsty leadership? We are that leader. We are destroying ourselves. How can a society actually turn against itself? Especially when that society, composed of those who drink the blood of their fellows, do so with the best of intentions. How can it possibly be shown that one's moral high ground is covered in headstones? It is as with any religion. Don't mind me. I'm on a mission from God. If God wills it, it is necessarily good and proper. What jihadist can be turned away from doing what his God has willed? What feminist can be appealed to on an argument of decency when she is already determined all men must die, and that is the truly good and decent thing to do? It's as if one speaks to a rubber chicken or falling leaf or ass. They will not speak back or understand. They will simply continue to do as they do. In the case of the feminist, even more so. After all, the further this regime progresses, the more power the weakest among us obtain. The deeper entrenched this movement becomes ingrained into our collective conscience, the more difficult it is to show the perpetrators the ultimate folly that awaits them. But not them. Not really. Aside from total martial law to destroy such insanity, apart from the weak links finally being broken off the chain completely, the path has been set and we are doomed to what we all know is the ultimate endpoint. Today, it is simple suggestion to get back in line and be quiet. Ultimately, the end is a world defined by a dictionary within which any word deemed offensive is simply cut out. Any deed deemed inconsiderate is given a punishment no sane person would ever consider to be equal to the crime committed. One's sensibilities have become Lady Justice. That lady with a blindfold, scales, and a sword was once a symbol of honest, unbiased justice. She was there to cut down evildoers without bias. The ladies of our own history have made the case that they were fighting the good fight, the just fight. Their intentions have been sold to us collectively as the good intentions of honest women in need of assistance. We failed to realize that capitulating to good intentions only paves the road to hell. As with Lady Justice, we saw their intentions as pure and good and without bias. What we failed to realize is the lady behind the blindfold, like her sisters, had sinister intentions all along. We have lost the war. It's done. MGTOW is the only path for men to tread. It is the only road paved with careful thought and unbiased reason. Intentions do not pave the path of a MGTOW. It is paved with the honest labor of free men without apology, without fear, and without shame. It is the path of those unafraid to live by their own rules. It's the only road left worth walking. Thanks for listening.